On this Tuesday night, questions about that meeting between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un and what exactly they agreed to. Was this handshake seen around the world a major change in international diplomacy, or was it just a photo op? We break down the promises from both sides, what they mean, and what comes next.
Also tonight, a U.S. official apologizes for saying Justin Trudeau deserves a special place in hell as Ottawa braces for more trade tensions.
And a months-long CBC News investigation. These aren't official Indian status cards, but some retailers can't tell the difference, and that's racking up illegal tax exemptions. Who has them? How do they get them? You might be surprised. This is The National.
As a photo op, it was a rousing success. President Trump's historic meeting with Kim Jong-un, painting Trump as a statesman and softening Kim's strongman reputation. It was a summit with plenty of platitudes, even a stated willingness to talk some more at a future date. But there were few hard commitments. And as Paul Hunter tells us, that has some wondering what was actually accomplished.
And so that was it. With a wave and a fist pump, it was all over, leaving the world, not least Americans, wondering, so what was the gain?
Honestly, he's going to do these things.
Calling it a tremendous 24 hours with a very talented Kim Jong-un, Trump had made a surprise promise to Kim.
We will be stopping the war games.
The pledge to end U.S.-led military exercises in the region was called stunning and unprecedented, something North Korea had long wanted, but that U.S. ally South Korea was evidently not even consulted on. The war games bolster South Korean security. In return came a vague pledge from Kim, light on any specifics, that North Korea would work toward nuclear disarmament. And while Trump seemed to give Kim the thumbs up on all this, lawmakers from both parties back home were unimpressed.
The United States has gained is vague and unverifiable at best. What North Korea has gained, however, is tangible and lasting.
Kim Jong-un is a butcher, and he is a butcher of his own people.
Two men, two leaders, one destiny.
Still, this video, which some first thought to be North Korean propaganda, was made by the White House for Kim. And indeed, some credit Trump for at least improving the tone with that country, though caution, the summit brought little else.
The improvement, that's a positive, but very short on substance, and that concerns me.
But in Trump's view, what's the harm? Nothing he did is irreversible, and with more talks likely, it's now up to Kim to follow through. Trust both of them, goes the suggestion from Trump, underlining he already trusts Kim Jong-un. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
Now, trust is a tricky thing to build, and between the two Koreas, it is in very short supply. So how did South Korea feel about the outcome? Well, officially, they're very pleased with the summit itself. President Moon Jae-in, who watched it all unfold on television, praised Kim's willingness to attend. He has even optimistically vowed to write a new history with the North. But recall, as Paul mentioned, the surprise concession from the U.S., suspending joint military exercises. That could introduce more uncertainty on the Korean peninsula. Sasha Petrosic joins us now from Singapore for a deeper look. So, Sasha, how does that one shift change the equation in that part of the world?
Well, Donald Trump has managed to please his adversaries around here and to catch his allies off guard, in particular South Korea, as you mentioned. At very first, they weren't really understanding what was going on here. In fact, the first statement out of South Korea was that they were trying to find the precise meaning or intentions of Donald Trump, which is, I guess, diplomatic code for we don't know what's going on. In fact, off the record, some officials from South Korea were saying that they were stunned and surprised by this. This came as a blow from the side, and they weren't expecting it. China, on the other hand, was in fact very, very pleased by all of this and was saying, oh, this is exactly what we were saying you should be doing. They have long been pushing this freeze for freeze suggestion, this idea that the Americans should back down, then North Korea should back down, and that this should go in tandem, and that's how you get peace. Of course, China likes the fact that the Americans would be pulling its troops and equipment out of South Korea, partly because it's so close next door. So all of that has come together, and in fact, the region is now trying to figure out what it all means.
And Sasha, what about economic sanctions? So far, they've put a chokehold on North Korea. What happens to those?
Well, as far as Donald Trump says, those will continue. Nothing has changed. But in fact, a great deal has changed. China is already saying that that it doesn't see why these sanctions need to stay in place. Russia's saying the same thing. It has a border with North Korea. So it looks very likely that both of these countries will, if they don't officially pull back from enforcing the sanctions, that they will at least look the other way when those big trucks full of equipment and other goods pass from one side of the border to the other, across the bridges, into China and out of China.
Sasha Petrusik in Singapore. Thanks very much. Now, I want to bring in James Trottier. He's a fellow at the Canadian Global Affairs Institute and a former Canadian diplomat who led 4 diplomatic missions to North Korea. So, James, let me start with the question. I mean, is the world really a safer place now, or is it simply a safer place for now?
It's a safer place for now in comparison to what it was a year ago when the two sides were exchanging threats. So I think that the good chemistry at the summit between the President and Mr. Kim, it was useful for allaying some of those tensions and for ensuring that for the foreseeable future, for the immediate future, you won't have a resumption of the exchange of threats. Also, the discussions that Mr. Pompeo will undertake with his North Korean counterpart will be useful for opening up channels of communication.
Right, because I'm trying to figure out what is it that Kim Jong-un realistically could and must put on the table to keep the relationship going, to sustain Donald Trump's interest?
I think one of the things that he'll put on the table in due course will be the long-range missiles and also, of course, the continued moratorium on the nuclear and missile tests. But he won't put on his nuclear arsenal.
Well, so let me ask you about that, because I'm wondering if the ultimate end game for the United States this whole time has been the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, is that ever achievable given how much leverage nukes have given the Kim regime to begin with?
I don't believe it is achievable. I think that Kim knows that the only reason he's at that table is because he's a de facto nuclear state, and he intends to keep those armaments. I think, though, that he wants to have other things. He wants to grow his economy. He wants to restore his economy. He wants the removal of sanctions. So he will be looking to China to lead that effort. And I think that he will be successful in that regard because the Chinese are already easing off sanctions.
Well, and the long game, I suppose, is what much of the world is watching for as this plays out. James Trottier, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, for whatever progress is being made in normalizing relations with North Korea, what many people find troubling is just how chummy and casual Donald Trump seemed to be with Kim, whose country, don't forget, has one of the most brutal human rights records on the planet.
I learned he's a very talented man. I also learned that he loves his country very much.
Let's start with that. Kim loves those who agree with him. According to reports from the U.S., UN, and South Korea, at least 100,000 political prisoners, some of them children, face starvation, torture, rape, and assassination in the gulag system Kim inherited from his father. Sometimes the crime is simply falling asleep at a political event or listening to foreign music. But for more serious offenses, there are worse fates. Kim is believed to have executed at least 340 people since 2011, sometimes in brutal and excessive fashion with an anti-aircraft cannon. He's also suspected of having his own exiled half-brother, Kim Jong-nam, killed in Malaysia last year. But even those who don't end up in a cell or executed struggle for fair treatment.
People are routinely punished for engaging in illicit activities. The bottom line is, if you don't do what the government says, you run the risk of being sent to a work camp where you might be worked to death. So it's a terrible, terrible place, one of the worst countries in the world for human rights.
Little wonder there's disappointment that human rights were not part of the joint statement the two men signed. Now, the other stark contrast here is that this deal comes just days after Trump refused to sign a different agreement with its own allies, the G7, and in particularly fiery fashion. But, Ian, they're backpedaling slightly.
Slightly, that's right. One of Trump's top advisors has had second thoughts about saying there was a special place in hell for Justin Trudeau, but the sentiment behind it has not diminished, with Canada still clearly at the top of the Trump administration's ever-changing list of targets. As Katie Simpson has learned, it has Canadian officials making Plan B, C, and D. You get the picture.
As trade tensions rise, the Prime Minister is trying to offer what reassurances he can to the Canadians who may get caught in the crossfire, including farmers. This is a message Justin Trudeau will be repeating as part of Ottawa's strategic response to the dispute with the United States. His government has two goals in the short term: ease anxieties of Canadians and business leaders while bringing back a level of respect to trade talks with the U.S.
I think that Justin probably didn't know that Air Force One has about 20 televisions.
Finding mutual respect may be difficult with Donald Trump. The president is making fresh threats against Canadians because he doesn't like what Trudeau said about trade at the G7 summit this weekend.
He learned that's going to cost a lot of money for the people of Canada. He learned you can't do that. You can't do that.
On his comments, as I've said, I'm going to stay focused on defending jobs for Canadians and supporting Canadian interests.
What about the dairy farmers? Trump may not be making any concessions, but one of his senior advisors apologized today after taking this shot at Trudeau.
Chris, there's a special place in hell for any foreign leader that engages in bad faith diplomacy. In conveying that message, I used language that was inappropriate.
Those words may help, but the Foreign Affairs Minister appears certain more difficult exchanges lie ahead.
From day one, we have said that we expected moments of drama and that we would keep calm and carry on throughout those moments of drama.
Chrystia Freeland heads to Washington tomorrow, a trip that is expected to get a lot of attention because of this high-profile trade fight. She'll use the spotlight to push Canada's anti-tariff, pro-NAFTA message and hopes that it gets a warmer reception from the Trump administration. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Ottawa.
The president has been making it pretty clear the past few days that he wants Canada's supply management system ended. If you're a dairy farmer in this country, you know the system well. If not, here's the brief. Supply management applies to milk, cheese, eggs, chicken, and turkey.
The whole model is so that we produce according to the market. We don't create surpluses.
The argument for is that it allows for, quote, stable pricing and ensures predictable and steady income for farmers, eliminating the need for government bailouts or subsidies. The argument against it flies in the face of free and open markets and drives up prices for Canadian consumers. So why is Donald Trump complaining about it?
The United States pays tremendous tariffs on dairy, as an example, 270%. Nobody knows that. We pay nothing. We don't want to pay anything. Why should we pay?
It also limits foreign imports of dairy products, including from crucial swing state Wisconsin. And it imposes steep tariffs. Yes, Trump's right about the 270%. The U.S. wants in on the Canadian market, but one crucial point Trump doesn't raise. The U.S. has way too much milk. Wisconsin alone produces more than all of Canada's dairy sector. Trump's threats and anger are making Canadian dairy farmers nervous. As Jayla Bernstein tells us, they know that while negotiations are on, everything is up for discussion.
His father started with 50 cows. Now he's up to 150 and hopes to one day pass his dairy business on to his sons. But lately, the future has been less than certain.
It's stressful. It's really stressful. I mean, when you have a family farm that's been in the business for a couple of generations,
then you don't know if your kids are going to be able to make a good living off it.
Nearly 37% of Canada's dairy cows are here in Quebec, and most of them are on family-owned farms like this one, farms that would struggle to survive without supply management.
Probably within 5 years, half the farms in Canada would disappear. I mean, and the other half would probably just kind of imitate the American system, getting larger, having overproduction, needing to have government support or subsidies to keep the industry alive.
Chapman's ice cream in Ontario uses about 1.5 million litres of Canadian cream each year, and they wouldn't have it any other way.
We have no interest in using American dairy in our products. Canadian dairy is far superior in my opinion. So if Chapman's got a vote, I can tell you 100% it would be no. Keep the supply management in place, please.
Those in Canada's dairy sector say President Trump is ignoring that American farmers get a leg up too through subsidies, though that doesn't stop his words from stinging.
It is a sacred cow, no pun, in Canada, and he's taking advantage of it.
This professor says it could be time for supply management 2.0.
We can no longer say that the system works and it should be protected. It needs to change. It needs to be modernized.
Strabel says he's just fine with updating the system as long as its core remains and the next generation can survive. Jayla Bernstein, CBC News, Saint-Blaise-sur-Richelieu, Quebec.
Taking you to Saskatchewan now, where police say they are still analyzing evidence from the Humboldt bus crash. 16 people were killed, 13 were hurt when a loaded semi collided with the bus. The trucking company is suspended pending the investigation. Since then, CBC News has learned the owner recruited drivers for another company. He isn't breaking the rules, but as Olivia Stefanovic explains, some are accusing him of working around them.
These are the sticks we got back.
There isn't an hour that goes by where Scott Thomas doesn't think of his son.
So that's his grad picture there.
Evan died in the Humboldt Broncos crash 2 months ago.
And my thought was every time I shake somebody's hand, his hand's going to be right there too, shaking that person's hands with me.
But as the grief sinks in, it's getting harder.
Because the initial shocks wore off, and now it's settling in. And so it's not better, but it's one foot in front of the other, and you just got to keep moving forward and dealing with one thing at a time, and hope someday you can look back and make sense of it all.
One of the things Thomas is having trouble making sense of, Sukhmander Singh, the owner of the suspended trucking company involved in the fatal collision, is still allowed to recruit drivers.
And he's going to turn around and run similar trucks and similar routes. Man, that's tough to swallow.
The safety certificate for Singh's trucking company, Adesh Diol Trucking Limited, was suspended 4 days after the fatal collision. Standard procedure pending the outcome of the RCMP investigation. But just 1 month after the tragedy, CBC News has learned the owner of the suspended trucking company was recruiting drivers while under investigation for the Humboldt Broncos crash. It's based out of the same Calgary home where Singh operated Adesh Diol Trucking, though Quality Logistics isn't owned by Singh.
In a sense, to me, it feels like it's kind of the Wild West out there.
The move was a red flag for the Alberta government. It suspended Quality Logistics, but then gave the company the green light to operate after the company showed it complied with safety laws. The provincial government is now closely monitoring the company. I
would have thought that maybe out of respect for the families and the nature of the tragedy that any entrepreneur would have respected the fact that there should be a certain amount of time that went by. I mean, I get it. He's a businessman, but to me, I'm surprised and disappointed that it happened that quickly.
Singh declined an interview, but says he was recruiting drivers for a friend who owns Quality Logistics. One of his trucks has been transferred to the other company. While under investigation, Singh is legally allowed to drive a truck and work for a trucking company, but he's not allowed to operate a company, Some in the trucking industry believe Singh is using a loophole.
They become what's known in our industry as chameleon-like carriers, who develop other business profiles and shift their business operations, other different entities.
The Canadian Trucking Alliance is now calling for new national standards. Meanwhile, the Alberta government says it will look at how trucking companies are formed and whether there's a way to make them safer. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Regina.
And still ahead tonight, she just wanted to sell yarn at a festival. So why was she detained and fingerprinted at the border?
And allegations of harassment inside the Ottawa Senators.
Plus, a CBC investigation into identity cards issued by a group led by this man. Some retailers mistake them for official status Indian cards.
You can't discriminate against me, and you can't say that because I don't live on a reserve, I can't hunt, I can't fish, I have to pay taxes.
It's the first Indigenous Fashion Week Toronto of this scope. It's bringing together a number of Indigenous designers and makers and craft artists from across the country, from Greenland also, and from America. It's pretty monumental in having all of these people in one place together. The goal of this Fashion Week is to redefine fashion where Indigenous voices and Indigenous representation is led by us.
There's a reason why so many Indigenous people are artists and in the fashion industry is because it means so much to us. Like, I'm getting choked up.
The only thing that our work has in common is our connection to our indigeneity, which is so amazing. Everyone has such a unique point of view in the way that they express their indigeneity, and I just can't wait to see the result.
A lot of the time, big box stores appropriate Indigenous fashion designs, beading. So this is kind of our rebellion to that and showing the authentic way to do these designs.
Everyone always feels like there's the rat race in the mainstream fashion industry, and it's extremely competitive. And it's very secretive, and it isn't a good environment to foster community, which is the exact opposite here.
It's more about the art, it's more about the concept, it's more about the fashion, and less about the commodity. Less about buying and selling and trying to do kind of like skimming the surface of fashion. This Fashion Week really kind of gets down to the roots and kind of lets us show what we're all about.
Carlson, quick to that puck, fires, scores! Erik Karlsson, point number 500!
Well, that was a rare highlight for Ottawa Senators captain Erik Karlsson during an otherwise disappointing NHL season for the team. The offseason not going so well either, with Karlsson and a teammate, Mike Hoffman, caught up in a controversy involving their partners, one that has ended up before the courts. Hannah Thibodeau is following this off-ice drama for us. Tell us more about what's involved here.
Oh, Ian, this was the Ottawa Senators' season from hell, finishing near the bottom of the standings. But not only that, the captain lost a child, and now, behind the scenes, there are allegations that the fiancé of one of the other star players is cyberbullying and harassing the captain's wife before and after their child died. The wife of Senators captain Erik Karlsson applied for a peace bond, seeking protection against the fiancé of Senators forward Mike Hoffman. Melinda Karlsson applied for the bond against Monica Carrick, fearing for her safety. In the court documents, Melinda alleges Carrick uttered numerous statements wishing her unborn child dead. Late November, the Karlssons announced that they were expecting their first child, and their son, Axel, though, was still born in March. Karlsson also states Carrick uttered that she wished that she was dead and that someone should also take out her husband's legs to end his career, and that Carrick posted over 1,000 negative and derogatory statements. The peace bond was sworn on May 4th, and a court document was set for the 25th. But that appearance didn't happen, and Ian, no word, in fact, if the bond actually has been served on Carrick.
No word and very few comments, but there is some reaction on the record.
That's right. The senators are looking into these allegations. In a statement, they say, "We are investigating this matter in cooperation with the NHL and will take whatever steps are necessary to protect the safety and privacy of our players and their families." As for Hoffman, he denied the allegations in a statement to the Ottawa Citizen, saying it's 150% that it's not us.
Thanks, Hannah.
Quite welcome.
Just ahead on The National, a CBC investigation into identity cards that look a lot like status Indian cards. We found out where they come from and how some people may be instructed to abuse them.
Walmart, Canadian Tire, Home Hardware, you know, if they don't, just say, well, this is my card. This is my Indian status.
Finding Cleo chronicles the search by her siblings to find their missing sister.
What do you do when complete strangers come and grab you, throw in a car, and push your grandma out of the way, and they take you away?
They last saw her in 1974 when she was ripped away from her family and adopted into an American home during the infamous 60s scoop.
She was yelling, she was crying. She tried to hitchhike back to Little Pine, back home to the reserve, but was picked up, raped, and murdered, and left by the side of the road.
It's a gripping listen spread over 10 episodes, packed with meticulous detail, as CBC News journalists, led by host Connie Walker, join Cleo's family in their search for answers.
But to not know anything, not be told anything, and then this child just disappear into thin air, no. Something's amok.
Not exactly the 140-character headlines we've been told people want. And yet, it has soared to the top of the iTunes charts in Canada and the U.S. So, has podcasting become the way forward for investigative reporting?
So, Connie, I know you've done investigative work in the past, but the podcasts are so singularly successful. In your view, is this the way for investigative journalists to show their work now?
I really hope so. I think it's such a fantastic format for investigative reporting because, as you mentioned, you know, when we're doing something for online or for television or radio, it's 1:30, 2 minutes if you're lucky. You know, we're doing a doc for The National that's 12 minutes maximum.
Which is so long in TV terms.
Exactly. And the podcast will end up being about 8 hours. And there is a huge audience now that's interested in putting headphones in their ears and listening to this kind of long format storytelling. And I think it's particularly important for investigative reporting because you can actually get into the weeds and really dig deep on a single story. We've been working on this one for over a year. But it's also fantastic because it allows you and gives you the space to tell the bigger story. To tell the bigger story, in this case, of the 60s scoop and the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women in Canada, and to provide the context that people need to really understand these issues.
And I think also as a journalist, I'm hearing the journalism, I'm hearing the work, because there is so much minutia in the day-to-day of gathering this information. So let's give people just a sample of what we're talking about when we say the minutia. Listen to this.
We're planning a trip to meet Johnny in person. But in the meantime, we call their brother Mark. He was adopted in Saskatchewan, but now lives in Edmonton, Alberta. Sorry, I just wanted to put my headphones on so I could take notes.
Yeah, no worries. It's that kind of detail. I'm putting on my headphones. I'm hearing you in that conversation that normally we wouldn't put in a story. We wouldn't even think about it because those are precious seconds taken away from something else.
Exactly, and I think of investigative reporting has been focusing on the end result. CBC News has learned X, Y, and Z. That's the headline. Even though we often spend weeks or months looking into a story, and the podcast allows you to report on that story. And I think if, you know, we're in this era of people being concerned about fake news and what is real and what is not, and I think that what that really is a conversation about is transparency. And in the podcast, when we actually show how we're making the decisions, we're outside somebody's house and we're on the phone with our senior producer, should we knock on the door? What are the concerns? What are the JSP issues that we need to be mindful of? Should we be rolling? You know, and we include all of that in the podcast. And I hope, or the intent is, to invite the listeners and the audience in to our process. And I think hopefully that engages them in a new way, but also, you know, helps people realize the in-depth work that we do and how and why we do it.
And I mean, the audience reaction is just hands down, they love it. So clearly people are interested in the kind of detail that we commonly leave out.
Nothing's changed. It's still going on. It's still continuing.
So they're not scared. They're not scared.
Well,
of
nothing has
caught.
happened to them yet, right?
We have spent months investigating these identity cards. They bear a resemblance to official Indian status cards. Some people show them at retail stores and avoid paying tax. That is illegal, and it's fueling a backlash against First Nations people who use their legitimate status cards as intended. So where do these other cards come from? Many are issued by a group that claims 50,000 members. Their leader swears these cards are completely above board. You can judge his explanations for yourself. But first, take a look at how it all plays out. Inside this store in Montreal, a man is planning to break the law to make a point. He's invited us to watch as long as his identity is hidden. What he's buying doesn't matter. It's the savings he's trying to score at the cash that he wants us to see.
All right. You take my Indian card?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, okay.
The cashier thinks she has just been handed what's known as an Indian status card, an official government document. She removes the taxes without catching on that it's not the real thing.
It was $8.20 without tax, but if you paid full price, it was $9.60, I think.
The savings are tiny, just $1.
I'm coming back. I forgot my money.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, just put that on the side. Okay, thanks.
We walk before a transaction is completed, so no laws are broken.
Merchants don't know the laws, so they'll take anything that's, being presented to them.
These men are blowing the whistle on a group they used to belong to. They say the group's members are getting tax breaks they're not entitled to by using almost look-alike Indian status cards.
I know somebody that do some renovation on his house.
I don't want to mention the name.
Yeah, saved over 35 grand in taxes.
Here's what an actual government-issued status card looks like. Those with status can be entitled to a range of benefits, including tax exemptions. Now, this is the card being passed off to unsuspecting shopkeepers. In a hurry, you can see how it could be taken as the real thing.
The Mohawk Council of Kahnawake election law meeting takes place tonight at 6.
And that is causing real problems here, 20 minutes south of Montreal. On the reserve of 8,000 people, the Mohawks of Kahnawake. What you have to know about them is they won a rare victory to use their status cards at a range of stores in Quebec, not just on reserve.
These are all fake cards, every single one of them.
It was working well until the look-alike cards started showing up.
If you look at the cards, they're pretty well done.
That's when the local police, known as the Peacekeepers, got involved.
That's a fake card, and that's a real card.
They're getting calls because shopkeepers are confused and suspicious.
This is happening quite a bit. And for us, for people in our community and other Native communities who have a legitimate right to receive goods tax-free, we fear that it will impact their rights somewhere down the road.
Dwayne Zachary is the chief peacekeeper, says his team have confiscated roughly 100 cards and that transactions occurred daily. So you're afraid that because some people are committing fraud, you're going to end up paying?
Of course.
In a way, it's already happening. Real cards are being turned away.
Somebody is making this happen. Somebody is giving them the hope that they have these rights. Somebody's giving them the means to commit these crimes. My feeling is that these associations, whoever they are, whoever's in charge, are the catalysts for all of this.
So where do these cards come from? Many, he says, from the Confederation of Aboriginal People of Canada. Sounds official, but the Assembly of First Nations doesn't recognize it. Neither does the Government of Canada. For the people in this community hall in Quebec, though, all Confederation members, the group is legitimate, and Guillaume Carl is their leader.
titles, and the appearance of prestige seem to matter to Carl. He insists his membership voted to refer to him as His Excellency or Grand Chief. His sons are the leaders of the youth wings. And he says there are 50,000 members nationally and a few hundred in Gatineau. But he blames the poor turnout this day on our cameras.
Anybody against this resolution?
This is a man emboldened by the people around him.
The motion is carried unanimously.
After a meeting about new positions in the group, he agreed to sit and talk.
Are your members led to believe that in using your cards that they can get tax exemptions in certain circumstances?
No, because it goes way beyond that.
People don't try to
Do you
use
think
these
people
cards
get
for
the
tax
card here
exemptions?
for taxes?
I have no idea. But I do know that the Kahnawake are claiming that they have seized those cards because
Illegally.
people have been trying
Illegally.
to use them for tax
And you know what?
exemptions.
When they seize it, the guy comes and gets another card. Our card is not a tax card. Our card is a card for your identification.
Where would members get the idea that their ID card might be something they could pull out at a store for tax breaks? We'd been curious about that for a while. So weeks earlier, an associate producer contacted the Confederation as a would-be member, not a journalist.
How far away is St. Paul Road?
She was directed to someone just outside Ottawa. Our crew headed off with hidden cameras.
Hi.
The representative is described as the Vice Grand Chief of the Confederation.
Come on in. But that's the application that we have to send, and it's $80 for 2 years. So that's the card.
Before long, the conversation turns to the cards. Using it for tax savings is no secret here.
Walmart, Canadian Tire, Home Hardware, you know, if they don't, just say, well, this is my card. This is my Indian status. If they don't,
Following that advice would be against the law. It's fraud. The stores that take off tax improperly, if caught, will eventually have to reimburse the government.
So what do you do? When you go to pay, you just give them the card first, and then they just remove the
Walmart,
tax?
they're very fussy. So you have to give them their card, the card, and they punch numbers and things like that, and automatically it's the tax is reduced.
Is that?
How do you feel about that?
I disagree with that. That's obviously not the opinion of the Confederation. It's the opinion of my vice chief.
Where did she make a mistake? What is it that she said
made
that's the
15
mistake?
mistakes, right? She's junior. She's a nice person, but she's junior enough to not know what she's talking about.
He doesn't elaborate, but we've followed up with the representative who says everything she explained on that hidden camera conversation was what she was told by the Confederation. She also says she believed the cards were official.
Why not tell your members, don't use these cards for tax exemptions?
Because I'm not their father or mother.
The Government of Canada does not recognize this card as being legitimate for tax exemptions, period.
That's their opinion.
The way he sees it, the Constitution is on his side.
Article 15 says equality in front of the law. If you're allowed to do something, I should be allowed to do something too. The same thing. You can't discriminate against me, and you can't say that because I don't live on a reserve, I can't hunt, I can't fish, I have to pay taxes.
Bottom line for Carl, he insists his members should get the rights because they are Indigenous. But are they?
You can have only 1%, and you are.
So you can join if you only have 1%?
Oh, yeah.
Carl told us about 90% of his members pass a DNA test. And indeed, in that hidden camera meeting, there was a $250 test.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever have people take the DNA test and they just come back non-native? Like, is that common, or?
I never saw it so far because we just started.
Carl's DNA tests are done through a Canadian company called Vigard Accumetrics. And this company claims that through its testing kit, its results can not only help determine the percentage of Native ancestry in your DNA, but that these results can also help you to receive a status card. The thing is, the Government of Canada doesn't recognize these sorts of DNA results as an indicator of Indigenous status.
Okay.
We thought we'd try to see how accurate Vigard's results are nonetheless. 3 colleagues agreed to help and let us test to see if they have any Indigenous DNA.
I'd be shocked if that test discovers anything else but Russia.
He was born in Russia, the other 2 in India. And they're pretty sure the answer will be 0 Indigenous ancestry. We follow Vigard's instructions to the letter, then send off the samples. Within a few weeks, the results are back, and they're a surprise.
Okay, so the results are in. This is yours, this is yours. Have a look. Huh?
Okay.
What have you got there?
I've got 20% Native American ancestry, 12% Abenaki, and 8% Mohawk.
I'm exactly the same.
Me too.
12 and 8.
Surprising, to say the least.
This is the sort of anomaly that needs an explanation.
Okay.
So we went to Simon Gravel in the Department of Human Genetics at McGill University.
Is it possible to tell if someone has Indigenous ancestry from the DNA?
Yes, it's absolutely possible. It's not the same as saying whether someone is or is not Native American, as a question of identity, but we can tell very well whether somebody has, for example, a lot of Native relatives.
What are the chances that these three very different people have exactly the same percentage of Native American ancestry right down to the band?
Yeah, extremely unlikely. Like, how much faith do I put in these reports? I would say personally, none.
We asked Vigard to explain these results. It told us many people find themselves in the range of 20% Indigenous ancestry. It also says the test we bought was just for information. To be legally valid, it would have to be done by a trained healthcare professional, one who wears latex gloves and a mask.
So did you say you're trained to do it? Is that the idea?
Yeah.
So what,
Guillaume Carl insists the tests done for the Confederation are legally valid, conducted only by trained testers. But just take a look at the DNA swab they did for our associate producer in that hidden camera footage. No gloves. He even appears to touch the swab before putting it in her mouth.
In any way, does this call into question the legitimacy, in your mind, of anyone in your membership?
No.
He is unyielding. But so are the voices from the Ganawaki Reserve, where frustration with Carl and his group is building.
They tell us that they have ancestry, they've done the DNA tests. They tell us sometimes that they're probably more Native than we are. You know, like, sometimes it feels like a slap in the face.
And government officials told CBC they have advised Carl to stop distributing cards that resemble certificates of Indian status. He says he won't.
Do you find it amazing that the government hasn't come after you in some way? Or the
no,
police
because they're not going to win.
Far from being contrite, Guillaume Carl seems primed for a fight. He has his members and his story, and so far, he has his way.
So, Ian, Indigenous Services Canada tells us that it's been contacted by a few agencies on this matter. So, the Canada Revenue Agency, Sûreté de Québec, and the RCMP, and that it's cooperating with them on their own investigations, and that it has retained a third party, I guess, to review some of these allegations. And there is a report on those expected probably by the end of this month.
So 3 of our colleagues, 2 born in India, 1 born in Russia, all came up with exactly the same DNA profile and a significant percentage of Indigenous ancestry.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a little odd. On the advice of some DNA experts at the time, when we did that swab, we did other swabs and sent them to another large company that also does DNA ancestry, and they came back with results that were very different, that were very much in line with the stories these people understand about their own histories. So, you know, there is still a lot to be explained.
Okay, and still ahead on the National, why a yarn seller from Southern Ontario was detained at the border and denied entry into the United States.
They threatened to throw me in jail, seize my vehicle, seize all of our stock, ban me from traveling for life to the States. They were very upset that I was there.
Tonight, Front Page Challenge welcomes in person Reverend Martin Luther King.
Dr. King, if you were in charge of rectifying this situation, what decisions would you make? How can we best rectify the whole problem of segregation?
Well, I think it will entail many
forces working together. There isn't one answer or one force that will solve the problem. I think it will. It means that the federal government will have to do a great deal in taking a positive, forthright stand. The moderates of the white South will have to become more courageous and positive in their stands, and liberals all over the country. And I think the church, religious organizations have a great deal to do in this period of transition. And the attitude of the Negro himself, he must be firm, he must work continuously for first-class citizenship, but certainly he must not use second-class methods to gain it. I think the methods are very important in thinking in terms of the end.
Well, what do you mean by second-class methods?
Well, I would think of violence as a second-class method. I would think of hatred as a second-class method. It seems to me that it is possible to move on toward the goal of justice with wise restraint and calm reasonableness, not compromising principles and never capitulating to the whims and caprices of the guardians of a deadening status quo, but at the same time maintaining a positive attitude of goodwill.
Dr. King, how long do you think it will be before the Negro in the southern states attains racial equality, social equality?
Well, I would have to make a distinction here between desegregation and integration. Now, on the question of desegregation, I think within 10 or 15 years we will achieve desegregation. We will break down the legal barriers in almost all areas, except in the most remote situations. Now, when we think in terms of integration, which is genuine intergroup, interpersonal living, that will take longer. I think, however, before the turn of the century, we will have moved a great deal toward an integrated society.
Do you believe, Dr. King, that racial and religious prejudice, generally speaking, feeds on ignorance?
Well, I think so. I think this is certainly...
Ignorance on both sides, I mean.
Pardon?
Ignorance on both sides.
Yes, I think so.
Dr. King, you mentioned the church's role in this. Some of the churches in the South are still segregated, aren't they?
Oh yes, by and large, the churches in the South are segregated.
How can they preach the Christian religion and segregate people? This must seem ironic to you as a minister yourself.
Yes, it is, but this is a perennial problem, this whole problem of the gulf or the gap between our profession and our practice.
Even in the midst of the ongoing spat between Canada and the U.S., a small-town Ontario yarn seller never thought she'd find herself on the wrong side of trouble. But when she drove south, hoping to make some sales at an American festival, she was detained at the border. Erin Saltzman has her story.
Knitters. Behind that quiet, calm facade, they're a forward-thinking bunch, always wanting to be on the cutting edge. Just ask Heather Bredner, owner of Aberdeen's Wool Company in Lindsay, Ontario.
Knitters are an interesting group, and we all love to go experience new things and see new yarns and see new colors.
I want to do this pattern.
With her customers constantly demanding the latest trends,
Do you have anything interesting in worsted?
Bredner figured she'd up her game.
There's this one.
She decided to hit the festival circuit. The Mother Earth News Fair and Fiber Fest in Frederick, Maryland. Bredner applied for and landed a coveted vendor's booth for the two-day event. Here was a chance to learn from other like-minded artisans, network with fellow knitters.
We prepared all of the product that we needed to take and, started work with customs brokers and all of that stuff. So these are the documents that we crossed the border with.
Brokerage fees paid, Maryland sales tax license obtained, passports pre-cleared. Bredner, along with her parents and an employee, loaded about 11 grand worth of wool into their cars and hit the road. And that's where this yarn began to unravel. They headed for the border crossing between Gananoque, Ontario, and Alexandria Bay, New York. When they got to the U.S. Customs windows, the agent asked the purpose of their trip
and said to me, "How do you expect to come into this country to work?"
So it went downhill from there.
Very much so.
They were separated from each other, she says, taken to a room, held with no explanation.
And they took mug shots, and then they were like, "Well, we're going to fingerprint you now." And I'm like, okay. And so at that point, to be brutally honest with you, so now I'm crying and ask if I need a lawyer, like, am I being arrested? We were told that as Canadian citizens, we have absolutely no right to a lawyer. We have no rights because we're Canadian citizens.
Eventually, she says, they got an explanation.
The gentleman came to the counter and said, "Your customs paperwork, everything is perfect, but you're not going to the States because you do not have an E2 visa."
An E2 visa. According to U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, an E2 applies to those who have invested or be actively in the process of investing a substantial amount of capital in a bona fide enterprise in the United States. Exactly what constitutes a substantial amount isn't clearly defined, but immigration lawyers say generally it's the type of investment made by larger corporations, perhaps planning to expand U.S. operations.
You told them you were just going for a couple days to sell some yarn?
Yes, they had our full exhibitor package from the festival.
We asked U.S. Customs and Border Protection about all this. We didn't get much more information than Bredner. They told us she did not possess work authorization to sell the merchandise in the United States. Bredner posted what happened on social media, which got the knitting community on both sides of the border tied up in knots.
I think the E2 is way off base.
American knitter and immigration lawyer Jong-un was incensed. She says Bredner would never qualify for an E2, and if anything, a different visa for temporary business visitors, called a B1, might have been appropriate.
If this doesn't fit into B1 activity, then I don't see any other visa category that it fits into. So that leaves us at the point that, are we saying that this activity is not permitted at all? You can't let people into the country to vend at a craft fair?
Apparently so. Word is, at the border, the attitude from U.S. Customs is not nearly as welcoming as it once was.
There probably is more of a crackdown now than there used to be.
Henry Chang is a Canadian immigration lawyer who advises companies wanting to do business in the U.S.
You can expect more scrutiny and more difficulties during the Trump administration. He's made it clear that he doesn't like foreign nationals, and that includes Canadian citizens. So there will be greater scrutiny as a result of that.
That's certainly what Heather Bredner discovered.
To me, it felt like there was no difference whether or not I had a truck full of heroin or whether I had a truck full of yarn. It was the same reaction, or what I anticipate would be the same reaction.
Is this the contraband?
This is the contraband. This is the very scary, scary, scary yarn.
With lost yarn sales and other costs, Bredner figures she's out at least $25,000. Worse, she could face problems if she wanted to travel to the U.S. in the future. Not that she plans to.
I don't know that I'm going to cross the border anytime soon, because it was utterly terrifying.
And that is one darn hole that won't be mended anytime soon. Aaron Saltzman, CBC News, Lindsay, Ontario.
Remember, you can always get more of The National every afternoon. The National Today, our newsletter, takes you inside our journalism. We also like to take a closer look at the stories you may have missed. Today, that included the latest car maker to be embroiled in Dieselgate. Hundreds of thousands of Mercedes-Benzes are now being recalled. Subscribe at cbc.ca/thenational.
People turning south from the freeway were startled when they saw 3 flying saucers high over Hollywood Boulevard.
Stories about spacemen and aliens and other galaxies have always been the most popular kind of science fiction. But on film, they haven't fared so well. That was, of course, until 1977 and Star Wars.
Don't be too proud of this technological terror you've constructed. The ability to destroy a planet is insignificant next to the power of the Force.
There's no avoiding it or resisting it. The Force is with us once again. 20 years after the original Star Wars hit the movie theaters and blew us all away with its special effects, the trilogy of films has been cleaned up, given a technological overhaul, and is about to be unleashed on the big screen one more time.
Are there any other ways out of the cell bay? We've been cut off!
What is it about these films that makes them endure? Let's be realistic. It wasn't the acting. It certainly wasn't the writing.
There's nothing for me here now. I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father.
It was the special effects. Hitting hyperspace goes down as one of the most wondrous moments in movie history.
What's that flashing?
Hallucinated reflector shield. Don't trap yourselves in. I'm going to make the jump to light speed.
For the first time, space looked real. Star Wars meant that movie making had finally caught up with our imaginations, and that opened up a whole new galaxy of possibilities for filmmakers and for audiences. 20 years later, the best actors in Hollywood don't draw crowds as well as special effects do. This film, called Special Effects, playing at IMAX theaters across Canada, is a testament to that fact. And most of the effects that you see in movies today were influenced, if not inspired, by Star Wars. This is Broken Arrow, released in 1995. Look familiar? It looks a lot like this scene from Star Wars.
It's incredibly visual.
Well, we are live tonight on The National, and we are tracking some developing news out of Ottawa. Conservative leader Andrew Scheer has kicked Maxime Bernier out of his shadow cabinet. Scheer announced the move in a statement tonight. Now, no reason was given, but CBC News has learned it has to do with a book Bernier wrote. In one chapter, he criticized Canada's supply management system and suggested that, quote, fake conservatives connected to the supply management lobby helped Scheer win the party leadership. What's more, Bernier initially told caucus the book was on hold because it was too much of a distraction, but over the weekend he published that chapter on his website, and the party reportedly saw it as a violation of a vow he made to caucus.
There is no cure, there is treatment, and so that's what been dealing with for the last couple of months.
That's former NDP MP Paul Dewar opening up today about his cancer diagnosis. He has terminal glioblastoma. That's the same type of brain cancer that tragically hip frontman Gord Downie died from last year. Dewar says he plans to make the most of his time now supporting projects for young people.
Earlier in the hour, we showed you an excerpt from the latest trailer from Destiny Pictures. Well, the only trailer played by Donald Trump for Kim Jong-un. All part of an effort to persuade Kim to make a deal. And that is our moment of the day.
He looked at that iPad, and I'm telling you, they really enjoyed it.
A new story, a new beginning. One of peace, two men, two leaders, one destiny.
So you saw a tape today, and that I think was done really well, but that was done at the highest level of future development.
Will he shake the hand of peace and enjoy prosperity like he has never seen?
They have great beaches. You see that whenever they're exploding their cannons into the ocean, right? So I said, boy, look at that. Wouldn't that make a great condo behind?
One moment, one choice. What if? The future remains to be written.
So the approach is a little unusual. In this fictional pretense of a movie trailer, the narrator says Destiny Pictures presents, and that's fine. Except, funny enough, there actually is a Destiny Pictures. That's a production company based in LA whose owner says, "Look, we had nothing to do with this trailer. It's just a coincidence." But he's still being pestered about it.
Well, and, you know, in a lot of ways, this is really knowing your target audience. Kim Jong-un is obsessed with American culture. He was educated in Switzerland until the age of 17. His taste apparently stuck in the 80s and 90s. This is right up his alley.
Look, it's not going to be, it's like so much that happened at that meeting. It's going to take us weeks, maybe months to figure out if the strategy was good. But I got to say, if the President of the United States shows you on his iPad a movie trailer designed just for you, maybe that would turn your head. We'll find out. That's The National for June 12th. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.